Well, the India-EU summit is about to happen, and all eyes are on that historic mother of all deals, FTA, whether that will be inked on the 27th of January or not, and what will be the consequences or perhaps the reactions, particularly from Washington, D.C. Joining me right now to discuss this and a lot more is the German ambassador to India, Philipp Ackermann. Thank you very much for joining NDTV.
Great pleasure. Yeah.
Let me begin by asking you about the summit itself.
Yeah.
The EU leadership will be here. They're being greeted as the chief guests for the Republic Day. How excited are you for that? But
Very much so.
But much more for the India-EU summit.
So let me start by saying it's a huge honor that the President and the Prime Minister invite both the President of the Commission and the President of the Council to be the chief guests. It's a first in a way, and I think Europeans are very, very happy about it and excited. And I think they will spend a wonderful day as chief guests at Russia particularly, but also later, the day later, then also a very substantive EU-India summit. It's a wonderful occasion, and I think it will show how strong and close the partnership between the EU and India has become. And you mentioned the FTA. I think we can be cautiously optimistic that something like the FTA will be announced. I think I'm feeling very, very what I'm getting back from the EU and from Brussels and our EU friends here at the delegation is that we can be cautiously optimistic. So that would be, I think, a game changer in EU-India relations, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And so is the German business world, who through this FTA will increase their business in India, no doubt.
Well, you are cautiously optimistic, and that makes me optimistic that there is something that is under works. But, Ambassador, you also had a meeting with the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar yesterday. All the envoys of the European Union were there, and I could see some happy faces, yours in the middle. Could you reveal what was discussed? Was it some kind of a preparatory meeting for the FTA?
So basically, I would say I cannot reveal from a talk in these private circumstances, but first of all, it was very kind by EAM to give us the hour yesterday, and it is, of course, it took place ahead of the summit, and we discussed the summit in all its different angles and chapters. But I want to say what became so obvious after this discussion is that how many overlaps there are between India and the European Union. In an unruly world, in a world full of tensions, it is very important to find partners that really align on many issues, and that's yesterday. I think I can say that with joy and conviction, we felt that between India and the EU there is a lot of common ground.
Yeah. Well, there is a common ground, and I hope there will be a positive trajectory in the future as well. But over the last 1 year and more, ever since the Trump administration came in, there's been the global tariffs policy that has been debatable all across. And Europe faced the brunt of it recently, although it has been taken back now.
Yes.
How do you see Trump's role in pushing India and EU together?
So, I think first and foremost, we have to say that we are two independent bodies, the EU, India. We feel that there is a lot of common ground, so it's good to join hands. But I have to say that, tariff policy is exactly the contrary of what the EU is advising and advocating. And therefore, this meeting between EU and India, the FTA that hopefully will come out of it, is a clear signal that there are still, important markets. EU is the most important single market in the world with 450 million inhabitants, agree on free trade. I think free trade is the way forward, and it will be beneficial to all sides of these deals, the European as well as the Indian side, and therefore I think it's high time to do it, and it is a clear message that we send out to the world. Free trade is the way forward and not tariffs.
Ambassador, the EU High Representative for Security Policy and Foreign Affairs recently spoke in the Parliament in Brussels. She spoke about the security cooperation, defense cooperation, and trade as well. What are the major areas that you feel, Ambassador, are the high priority areas when it comes to EU and India?
So, free trade and business is one of the biggest blocks we have to tackle, and I think there we are on a good way. We have everything that is security and defense also. That is, you will see also a roadmap being agreed upon on defense and security during the summit. But there are all these questions, that we have to tackle jointly, like, let's say, climate change, AI, the things that are very much on our mind. which need to be tackled and need to be coped with. And I think the summit will be the moment where the EU, a strong confederation of countries, as it were, and India sit together and discuss them. So I think there is ample opportunity to discuss lots of stuff, and we will, in the coming month after the summit, together with our EU friends, look what we can take from the summit and what we can develop in the months to come.
Ambassador, one issue that the common people of India particularly are looking forward to is, in this entire gamut of the FTA, will there be some relief given in the visa regime as well? Because mobility and, be it students, be it common tourists or businesses, they've faced a little bit of too much of documentation and delay in the visa process. So could there be some relief?
So I think what you've seen during the Chancellor's visit, we will lift a transit visa obligation for Indians going through German airports. That's a visa relief, as it were. But generally speaking, I think that our visa issuing numbers are growing between 5 and 10% every year. We have streamlined our visa process. We have tried to make it as quickly as possible. And, I can only speak for the German part, of course. I'm happy to see that waiting times are mostly not more than 2-3 days. And therefore, I think our Schengen policy has changed in a way that we can be a very reliable service provider to the Indian traveler.
Now, moving on from India-EU towards the global conflicts that have been raging and causing disturbance, on the Russia-Ukraine front, there's been obviously a lot of death and violence, but there have been a lot of debates and discussions and negotiations as well. As we speak, there are discussions in Davos, in Moscow, and in the UAE. Are you hopeful that there would be some kind of a permanent ceasefire achieved? Because the Trump administration seems to be blaming the Ukrainian president now, even though we haven't seen the Russian president budge.
So I have to say that, as a diplomat, every moment, every opportunity to discuss a ceasefire is very welcome. So I think whatever happens right now, and as you rightly say, you don't know where we are, it's changing every hour. Whenever people sit together and try to figure out how to end this raging war, this war of aggression that really kills hundreds of thousands of people, and now makes half of Ukraine basically freeze because the Russians are bombing energy infrastructure. So everything that leads to a ceasefire is welcome. But, and that's a very important condition, is it must be a ceasefire that comes to the satisfaction of Ukraine, because Ukraine is the aggressed partner. It's the partner or the country that has been invaded. Land has been grabbed. So for us, it is very important that any ceasefire, any negotiations for a peace needs a clear approval of Ukraine. Otherwise, it is not fair and not just.
Well, even though Ukraine has been burning and people have been dying there, now we have a raging debate on Greenland. And Chancellor Merz has been very frank in his Davos speech, and he has said that any kind of a military reaction will give a strong, united, response, resolute response from the Europe side as well. Could you elaborate on the Greenland discussions that are underway? What will be the reaction of Europe and Germany?
So I think Europe has shown it is very united on the Greenland issue. We have shown resolve, and we have shown what we accept and what we cannot accept. Since yesterday, I take it, with all, I'm far away from Davos, but we are in a new situation. I think the Americans have said that annexation by military power is off the table, and there is a deal undergoing. I haven't seen it. Most people haven't seen it. The Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, has developed this together with the Americans. Now we'll see how this deal looks, but I say that for the time being, we are happy that the imminent threat of a military annexation seems to be off the table.
But has this awakened the Europe in certain ways? Because there are a lot of discussions that are happening of the 10% tariffs that were put on the 8 countries, including the UK, and that was supposed to increase to 25% in June. Will this unite Europe even more to the security risks?
So these tariffs seem to be off the table as well, which is also very helpful and very reassuring for us. So I'm glad that that's not any longer pending above us. But I think in general that's a wake-up call. And you heard our Chancellor, you heard Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, you heard the President of the Commission. I think it's time that Europe rejoins its hands and gets together in a more independent way.
On the question of Gaza, Ambassador, there's been a board of peace that has been instituted by the US President Trump. We saw the meeting taking place publicly in Davos, in which several heads of the governments participated as well in the signing ceremony. How do you see it, the board of peace, the future of board of peace? Also, does this undermine the role of the United Nations? I mean, I'm not only talking about the logo of the board of peace, but much more, where from Pope to the heads of governments have been invited, and Trump seems to be dictating the policies.
So my country was invited too, and like India, we say that we are still assessing the situation. There are questions that have to be answered. We are not entirely sure what this board really is heading to, where this board is heading to, and therefore I think our answer is still pending and not coming anytime soon, I would say. But I have to say at this moment, for us, the primary role of the United Nations is the most important question here. Without the United Nations, there is no legitimacy in international dealing. And it is the only body that really contains the whole of the world. And we are very strongly of the opinion that it should be happening there within the United Nations. And where the bodies are there, where legitimacy is there. So I think we should all strive to support the United Nations, which are in a difficult position right now, as much as we can.
Ambassador Ackermann, there's also an AI summit, the Artificial Intelligence Summit, hosted by New Delhi next month here. What kind of a participation could we see from Germany, and also collaboration, not just in AI, but science, research facilities that are growing between these two countries?
So we will be represented at this very important summit. The French president will come. We will send our Minister for Digitization, a very, very experienced and learned person that really tries to digitize our public administration, and we will be very, very he'll come with a big delegation and other junior ministers, so we will be represented very visibly at this summit. I think AI is a task we have to tackle, and this summit will be of great use to all of us that have to find ways and means to work with this in a beneficial way. So I think we are looking forward to this summit, and in our bilateral relations, this will play an ever-growing role, I would say.
Ambassador, finally, on India and Germany. Recently, we saw, Chancellor Merz here in India. We, of course, saw him visiting Ahmedabad and Bangalore. I was myself to receive him there in Ahmedabad. And we saw some happy faces. We saw a large business delegation as well. So trade on the mind ahead of the India-EU summit. How confident are you of growing this relationship between Germany and India?
So it was, a very clear message that the Chancellor came 2 weeks before the EU-India summit, because we wanted to make sure that this FTA really sees the light of the day at some stage. And I think we have pushed hard on both sides to come to conclusion. As I said before, I'm right now cautiously optimistic that we get an FTA announced during the summit. So I think there's hope that this will be the case. The visit was a great success. We appreciated the Prime Minister's gesture to invite us to his hometown, Ahmedabad. We had a wonderful visit, not only substance-wise, but also, the exposure to the culture of Gujarat, of Ahmedabad, was very, very nice. And I think, we are on a very good level in our bilateral relationships, but there is still room for improvement. And therefore, I think this summit, and you mentioned the 25 CEOs who came along, really helped us to get to this next level. So I'm very optimistic about the relationship in the future.
You are optimistic, as are we. Can I sneak in one question about the defense partnership between India and Germany? Because there are negotiations about the submarine deal, etc., that's going to happen. Could we see, if not, it didn't happen this time, perhaps in the next few months?
So, there is a lot of discussion going on. Right now, we have to develop a government-to-government agreement. So I would say with all due caution, we are on a good way, but we are still not where we should be. So we will see what happens in the next week.
Ambassador Ackermann, as always, it's a pleasure having you here on NDTV.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was the German ambassador speaking exclusively to NDTV just ahead of the India-EU summit. All eyes are on that high visit of the top leadership from the European Union as chief guest at the Republic Day, but then the crucial brass tacks of the India-EU FTA. Reporting from Delhi, this is Aditya Kaul for NDTV.